Hey everyone, I probably look slightly country to y'all right now, and I'm kind of putting on an accent, but that's okay. I didn't grow up too far from Alvin, Texas. You know where Nolan Ryan came from? You know, Nolan Ryan, old number 34 for the Houston Astros. I believe he's number 30 before that for the California Angels, but he says things on TV like, "Hi, I'm Nolan Ryan. How long are you going to live with that crack in your wall?" And he says other things like, "Hey, you need to fix it with oil scan and fix it for good." And then he likes to get on the radio and say, "You need to get yourself an American Standard air conditioner." Anyway, some of my accent comes from that same part of the world that Nolan Ryan came from. And that explains that. I don't know why I started with that, only to say this. I do look kind of country, but guess where I live? I kind of live in the country. I live amongst the farmland in Texas. But this past week, I went and did all kinds of crazy stuff. Let's talk about it next. Yeah, welcome again to In the Mix with DJ Marty D. It is one of those episodes where I'm going to reminisce just a little bit. Oh, coffee? There's still the price tag. No, that ain't a price tag. That's it's a brand stamp. I don't know. Don't you like that mug? That's a verse that I live by right there. Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ, through him who gives me strength, Anyway, what did we do this week? Oh, we were out on the water. When I was a kid, I went a couple times on some deep sea fishing trips. I don't know if you know much about a deep sea fishing trip, but first one I ever went on was a 42-foot Hatteras. Very nice boat, but kind of like on the private side of things. 42 foot long seems like a lot until you can't see the land anymore. And until the seas that are supposedly calm are 2 to 4, and then they go 4 to 6 or 6 to 8. If you know what that means, that's how much room there is in between the bottom to the top of the wave. And the higher that number gets, the higher you go up until you come back down. Yeah, 2 to 4 might be doable. 0 to 2 might be preferable. 6 to 8 can be kind of rough if you're a landlubber like me. Well, then I went one time when I was already a teenager with my dad, and I went out on a little bit bigger boat, what they call a party boat, that had about 100 people on it, where you fish all the way around the boat. Went out on that one, did great, caught 2 big red snapper right off the top, and then immediately started looking out on the horizon, and I saw the horizon doing this. And I said, no, something in my body just shut off. Yeah, I had some of that stuff you take to keep you from getting sick. Didn't matter at all. So what did we do this last week? Well, some of you who might have seen the last episode about Jonah, you're aware that we were blessed with a cruise on a boat called the Carnival Breeze. Now, the thing about the Carnival Breeze is you get on there and they give you your little badge, and you go from place to place on there. You don't really do anything off of the boat until you get all the way across, in this case, all the way across the Gulf from Texas in Galveston at the port, all the way across to the Yucatan Peninsula in a town. The first stop was Progreso, Mexico. Now, listen, Progreso is probably really nice when it's cleaned up. When we went, it was the Monday after apparently a great party weekend, because the beach was more littered than I've seen one in Texas littered for at least 40 years. And apparently they don't have a slogan like "Don't mess with Texas" in Progreso. Because number one, it's not Texas. Number two, it's Mexico, and it's a party town of sorts. Not near as much as you'd think it would be, but apparently a whole lot of people had a whole lot of beer and decided they didn't know a whole lot about a trash can, to put it mildly. But Progreso was a ride. It reminded me of some other places in Mexico I've been before, more along the Rio Grande, more along that area, kind of more like a border town. Progreso was a lot more, I would say, financially um, I don't know, depressed area, even though there's a big major port there and a ship comes through. Um, we just walked over there, walked down the beach to the first place where we got about 100 yards away from somebody trying to sell us something. If you know, you know. And we got over there, it was a little bit quieter, and we took some selfies. But so one of the things that happened though at the day at sea, the first day at sea, which is what they call while you're waiting to get where you're going because you're just out there in the middle of the ocean. Not technically the ocean, it was more of the Gulf. You can call it the Golfo de Mexico, or you can call it the Gulf of America, or you can call it whatever you want. I just call it the Gulf to try to keep out of that discussion because it does have many names. Some people in Galveston call the Gulf the big chocolate milk because it kind of looks that way sometimes. But the first night there, I on the cruise, was it the very first night? I think it was the very first night. We had a competition amongst passengers. Trust me, I was a passenger. I had nothing to do with being part of the crew. You end up feeling like part of the crew toward the end because there's nowhere else to go. And you feel like you're on Pirates of the Caribbean when they're all saying part of the crew, part of the ship, part of the crew, part of the ship. No. But the first night was a contest. Of course, there's things going on all over the ship, right? There's thousands of people on there. There's many, many levels. I believe level 0 and under is where all the crew stays. And then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think all the way up to 10, there are still rooms on either end. And then 11 is kind of the deck that's above all of that, which is more observation and activities. And then you got 12, which is the spa. I believe you go all the way up to 15, which is the very, very top. We didn't go up to that. I don't know why. We could have. Just one of those things we kind of forgot to go do. Believe me, there's a lot going on. But anyway, one of the things that was going on was the 90s music trivia. Now, yes, I do call myself DJ Marty D. And guess what decade that really, really went to fruition in my life? Of course, I started with some rapping and some beatboxing and doing covers of songs like that in the late 80s in middle school. But once I got into that category of 1990 and forward, I was really more in my DJ years as far as making mixtapes, doing things of that nature, and started to put out my own music. Of course, that lay dormant until the year 2021 when the Lord started to stir up the lyric writing ability again. Anyway, we did the 90s trivia, and yours truly ended up winning a medal. See, this medal is not worth a whole lot, but I got this medal not from my music trivia, but from the fact that I was a good sport and I danced a little bit to a song that was on the list. Yes, I got every single one of the songs right. I have the list right here. Let's see. Anything from Blink 182, to House of Pain, the Fugees, Aqua TLC, Genuine, Christina Aguilera, Nirvana, Criss Cross, Celine Dion, Spice Girls, Coolio, MC Hammer, Oasis, TLC, again, Garth Brooks, Britney Spears, and Whitney Houston. So there were 18 songs on there. I knew all of them. And then I also knew the tiebreaker. And when they started to play the tiebreaker song, and I was the first one to buzz in by slapping the stage because we were standing down front. And I said correctly that it was Around the World by Daft Punk. And then I was awarded with what some lovingly call a ship on a stick. It's the Carnival Breeze, y'all. It is a model of the ship we were riding. So it's pretty cool, right? And see the theme on there says, choose fun. I see you. Choose fun. That's what it says also on the back of the medal that I got. Well, anyway, it was great fun. That was before we ever got anywhere in the anywhere in the country of Mexico. That's when we were still in the Golfo de Mexico. It is legitimately called the Gulf of America in international waters until you get past the shelf that's under the water. And when you get out in the middle, it's kind of called the Mexico Basin or the Gulf of Mexico or the Mexican Basin. Then you come up onto the shelf where it's shallower water toward Mexico, and then it's the Gulf of Mexico either way. So there's a debate on that, but it doesn't need to be. It can be both at the same time, whatever makes you feel better, all right? And then, so that next day we were in Progresso. We took our selfies, did all that kind of stuff. And then the day after that, we went to Cozumel. Now, we were thinking we were going to see at some point some Mayan pyramids. We could have done that, but it was a little bit of money that we didn't have readily available to be able to go and do that. We thought about going to one of the excursions where they take you to a private beach. By the time we thought, that's a good deal, let's go do that, it was sold out. Sold out. So what do? We started doing the old thing that all the bipedal humanoids do, because we're not aliens. Are we alien? We were alien. We were technically aliens to that country, meaning we were from the outside. We didn't technically belong there, other than the fact we had ridden the ship to their port. We got off at Cozumel, which is an island, by the way. And we were on the side of the island. I'll try to put the map up here. We were on the side of the island where the body of water between us and the mainland was, I guess we could say we're on the inner protected side of the island, not on the side that faced out to the South Atlantic. But we walked around town. We walked through some shopping and everything. And then we came up to one of the main roads. And we started walking down one of the main roads. And I kept seeing a certain company about every 200 yards, it seemed like. And they would go, "Señores, do you want to go to a private beach?" And I would go, "No, it's okay, it's okay." By the third one, we walked across the street and we went and saw what they had to offer. Because that's kind of what we had wanted to do. We wanted to be able to go to the beach at Cozumel. It's a prettier location anyway. Crystal clear water. Oh, man. I mean, the blue next to the ship was the color of the stuff on this skeeter spray right here. It was every bit the colors that are found on the badge to get on and off the ship. It was super ultraviolet. I mean, not violet. I don't know what I'm trying to say. It was crazy crystal clear. You know those fake blue fountains you see in front of restaurants and stuff? And you're like, that's so fake. Water doesn't ever look that way. Water looks that way in the Caribbean, y'all. Even though we were in what you would call the Western Caribbean, water looks that way. So anyway, we went up and we listened to what they had to say. And they said for $20, you get to go to the private beach. You've got umbrellas. You've got chairs. You can kayak if you want. You can snorkel. And we were like, all right, that's fair. And then as we're getting into the cab, we've paid our $40 for the two of us, right? As we're getting into the cab, as he's closing the door, just be sure and pay the driver $15. Clunk. Did he just say just pay the driver $15? Okay, it's a taxi. All right, that's not included. That's fair. We'll pay $15 for the ride over there. Of course, when we get there, the food that they said they had available, that was an extra charge. It was okay. You know, we got us something to sip on while we're there, and it was about less than the amount of water in a half a water bottle, you know, and you're kind of looking around going, I don't know if I want to eat the food. It kind of smells okay, but whatever. We have food on the boat. I mean, you can eat every 5 minutes on the boat if you want to. But the coolest part, I'm going to try to show it up here, is this beach was so beautiful. Oh my word. The panoramic view you had, and it just was like, I was in awe of God's creation. Even the things that mankind tried to do to enhance it. It's just like if you could look in the water and see, you know, the little blue fish on that, on the cartoon, on the animated film where they're trying to find a certain fish whose name starts with N, and he's like a clownfish, which is like orange and black stripes. I didn't see one of those, but I did see the little blue and yellow one that accompanies them throughout the movie. I saw several of those down by our feet. I saw some little tiger striped fish, had little stripes on them. I saw Atlantic bluefish, about that long, Probably weighs about 2 pounds. They just were by the tens and dozens, and probably if you kept counting, you probably would have seen 100 fish around you at any given moment. The beach is different there. It's extremely rocky terrain at the one we were at, but you wear the water shoes or whatever to protect your feet. I didn't have any, so they had sandbags placed in the water that you could step on top of those to get out there. Very cool, very cool. There was a really cool sign. Let me see if I can put that up here. A really cool sign that talks about the sea is the cure for everything. I loved that sign. It was in Espanol. That's going to be my new desktop on my computer, most likely. Anyway, just a really good time. And then, of course, we came back to the ship earlier than a lot of other people did. There were people from the day before that were running, trying to catch the ship at the last second. They're like, don't leave, thinking they're going to get stopped. And then turns out there were 2 busloads of people who went on a sponsored excursion, and they barely got back. In fact, they were a little bit late, but since it was sponsored by the cruise line, they were allowed to be a little bit late. Anyway, after Cozumel, we didn't see any pier runners. Everybody seemed to get back at the time they should. Had a good evening that evening, and that night went to karaoke. It was interesting. It seemed kind of dead, and I had a flashback to like 1986, and maybe it was 1985, somewhere in there. But I performed a song. You can kind of see from some folks' reaction, they're a little excited that I'm doing that song. And just to be honest with you, it was kind of lame at first, and then I decided I'm going to do that song as if I'm still in middle school. Of course, you run out of breath real fast, so the third and the fourth verses were a little bit weak on my part, but the guy who was playing the accompanying track noticed, and he kind of put their vocals that are built in back up on there. But as I'm jumping around and being animated and everything, everybody got hyped. A lot of people stood up. A lot of people kind of sang along with me. And after that, that place was nutso. I mean, it felt, my wife was like, Marty Murray, the king of the cruise. And I didn't feel like the king of the cruise. But there were moments when, let's just say, I smiled most of the week. It was very nice. And to see my wife smiling and to just realize, hey, we're having the time of our lives. It's fun. And not that's not a cliche. It was really awesome. Another shout out again to the folks at Souls Harbor that's a church in Freeport, Texas. And their pastors, Tim and Rebecca Weedy, are the great folks who got in touch with us and said, hey, we're doing a fundraiser, and the thing we're giving away is a cruise. And to make a long story short, again, no, we didn't win it, but it ended up that we got to go because the people that won it asked the pastor and the board to decide who could go. And we were so honored to be even considered. And let me just tell you something. If you've never gone on a cruise, if you get a chance to, whether by winning or being gifted a cruise or by saving up some coins and purchasing one, if you get a chance to go do it. It's extremely fun. It was extremely refreshing. But I just want to leave a small thought here with you about relaxation and taking a break. We're all very, very familiar with Psalm 23. A lot of people can quote it by heart. I could probably quote it by heart in the King James English. But I just want to read Psalm 23 one time through for you before I go today. And it's interesting when you read it, Psalm 23, and you see a couple of points that you may not always see. Psalm 23, written, of course, by David, King David, eventually, said, the Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need. He lets me rest in green meadows. He leads me beside peaceful streams. He renews my strength. He guides me along right paths, bringing honor to his name. Even when I walk through the darkest valley, I will not be afraid, for you are close beside me. Your rod and your staff protect and comfort me. You prepare a feast for me in the presence of my enemies. You honor me by anointing my head with oil. My cup overflows with blessings. Surely your goodness and unfailing love will pursue me all the days of my life, and I will live in the house of the Lord forever. Verse 2, we know in the King James it says, He leads me beside still waters. The stiller the water is, oftentimes the deeper it is. But think about that. He maketh me. He makes me lie down in green path. God will make you take rest if you haven't, right? When you get a chance to have rest, it's ordained of God. Listen, remember in the very beginning in Genesis, God saw that everything was good, and on the seventh day, he rested. There's a divine principle of rest. There's a divine precedent of rest. They designed precept, concept of rest. It's built in to humanity that we need a break every now and then. Maybe you won't get to go somewhere like we did. Again, like I'm saying, it was such a blessing. We basically didn't have to pay anything out of pocket. We had to pay for parking. We had to make sure we gave gratuities to the wait staff and things like that. And any little thing we wanted to buy when we were in country there in Mexico. But it was just a super blessing. And it might not be that you can do that. Maybe you can walk over to the park, take your children over to the park, push them in a swing for a while, hear them giggle, hear them laugh. Sit out on the back porch or the front porch, wherever you get the most breeze, next to your spouse. Or, curl up on the couch, turn the fan on, the AC like you like it if you can, and, read a book. Take some time to rest. Make sure you're getting enough sleep. Make sure you're eating as healthy as possible. I don't even want to go over all the menu that we had this last week. It was a bunch. But God bless y'all. We love you. We do seriously just thank the folks at Souls Harbor. It is an Assembly of God affiliated church there in Freeport, Texas. They're easy to find, Souls Harbor Church. But I believe their website is soulsharbor.live. That's SOULSHARBOR.LIVE. But go check them out. If you're down there in Brazoria County, you need a good church home. You can't go wrong. Those are some great people. Hey, I want to invite y'all to subscribe. Make sure if you liked today's video that you also share today's video. Be sure and subscribe. The message gets out that God is in control. God cares about you, and He cares about your rest. The more you let someone know it, the more it will get there. All right? Hey, by the way, I wore this hat today and this shirt. These are some of the things that I had on during the cruise, hoping maybe someone from the cruise sees it and they're encouraged as well. Again, like I said, hope you like, share, subscribe this. Love y'all. We'll let y'all get back to it for the weekend. Hey, it's Friday evening, y'all. Wow. What a time to come back in town.